bring back Group Captain Augustine and Captain Augustine again. I would like to understand from you, from the technical point, how were we able to perform such a clinical execution of the targets in such a precise, clean manner? It has got to take a teamwork. It has got to, it needs a lot of information. It requires classified information. It requires satellite images. It requires intelligence to be able to know that where exactly is every single one of those air bases that we have to strike of enemy nation.
Great question, Megha. I would take it on in two steps. First and foremost is, I've been the boss of operational planning, for which I got presidential award. I was the first CATS of Eastern Air Command, and with that as the background, I am saying this. Whenever you carry out any operations, and this is for the consumption of Group Captain Chow, who has been my, my senior and squadron doctor, the medical doctor when I was in Bidar. So for his consumption as well. So any operation starts with an operational aim through which operational objectivity or objectives flow. So if your aim, firstly, when the aim is spelled out, it is not spelled out to all and sundry. It is kept within the bounds of military planners and the polity. So based on the objectives that we achieved, we should be able to make out what was the aim. And the aim was A, destroy as many terror infrastructures as possible. B, give a loud and clear message. And it was not to go hell for leather against Pakistan, like Russia and Ukraine. So in the era of precision, restraint, and deterrence defined in the modern battlefield, especially the Indian battlefield, Operation Sindoor, I would say, has emerged a landmark demonstration of how a calibrated Indian military resolve was demonstrated. As Vice Chief, Air Marshal Narmdeshwar Tiwari, he was instrumental in attacking that Tiger Hill during Kargil. He recently stated there is no greater example than Operation Sindoor, how a fewer than 50 precision launched weapons employed with intelligence-led targeting that can decisively shape the strategic environment, please quote unquote, shape the strategic environment and compel an adversary to reconsider its course. These words are not just a reflection of military pride, but they are quite an assertion of doctrinal shift that how India wages war. It is not that we'll complete Nistan kar denge. No, that was not the thing. The operation was not a blind show of strength, but it was a message crafted with satellites, drone feeds, delivered through pinpoint strike on enemy infrastructure and leadership nodes, which he himself came and said, "Hamare, Noor Khan mein aake attack kar diya," across the entire hostile territory. It showed the world that India does not require massive troop movements or an extended combat to exact justice. It needs precision, intent, and integration. We showed all three. On top of IACCS, we put Akash Tir, and you know what Akash Tir did. Operation Sindoor proved that a joint force synergy, real-time intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, which in Air Force we call it the ISR, Indigenous Weapon System, BrahMos, when brought together with strategic clarity, can create disruptive effects for far and beyond the kinetic damage, which the General was mentioning too. It is a playbook not only as retaliation, but for a calibrated coercion, quote unquote, calibrated coercion. A doctrine that reflects that India's maturity as a regional power, willing to strike hard but smart. Remember, it is a pause button that is pressed. So in the wake of Pahalgam terror ambush, this operation served as a righteous and a proportional response. But more importantly, it set a new threshold for Indian retaliation.
Yeah.
where intent is measured not only how based on how many bombs we dropped, but how precisely and how effectively they were used. Very,
Absolutely.
very, very important. We call it in the military the buck splat. The buck splat is, I mean, when you drive a car, the buck comes and hits your windshield, isn't it? That splatter is called buck splat. Keeping the buck splat as low as you can so that there is least amount of collateral damage, but the effect is precise, and which is why you rightly brought out. They came on their knees and said, हमें बचा लो and फटाफट table पे आ जाओ. We said we are ever ready as long as you don't do a Pahalgam once more. Over to you, Megha.